Hey world, my name is Christine Don and I'm here with Comics First at Wizard World Philadelphia 2016. I'm here with Brad Guigar, the Eisner nominated web cartoonist, who's been publishing webcomics for almost 16 years.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic ride. I started out wanting to prove the syndicates wrong for turning down my submissions, and ended up kind of building my own company out of it. It's been a lot of fun.
Right, your own kingdom, really.
Yeah.
So where did your love of webcomics begin?
Well, it started out I wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist. That's back in the day. That was kind of like my model growing up. And I read guys like Burke Breathed and Bill Watterson and Gary Larson, and that's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to be. Unfortunately, I had the misfortune of having been born in an area that newspapers were slowly dying out. And at the same time that was happening, we were all getting these AOL CDs mailed to us. This is before your time. Back in the day. And we looked at those and we said, yeah, I don't need anybody to publish my work. I can just put it out there. And we kind of built up this thing called webcomics, me and a lot of other people working sometimes together and sometimes separately, kind of building up this whole thing that's now very, very widespread and based around, it's really where independent comics has gone. If you're an independent cartoonist, you are a web cartoonist.
Basically, right. So can you tell us a little bit about the motivation behind Evil Inc., your daily webcomic about supervillains, right?
Yeah.
Who do evil things like legally.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about the motivation behind that?
Well, my first comic was called Greystone Inn, and it was a comic strip about a comic strip starring a gargoyle. And I sat at the Toronto Comic Con in 2004 with people much like right now, walking back and forth, nobody stopping. And I realized I had created a very, very difficult comic for newcomers to understand. One of the storylines there was a corporation of supervillains. It was a one-week throwaway thing. People loved it. And so on the plane ride back, I kind of decided I needed to retool, and I took that idea and I wanted to see how far I could extrapolate it, because I knew it had legs. And so it started out with the corporation. The secondary story became Mismatch being secretly married to Captain Heroic. They've got a mixed marriage. She's a villain, he's a hero. And they've got a family together. And between those two themes of kind of a blended family, I could work off of those themes, and the idea of corporate evil, I could work off of those ideas, and just the whole playing off of those ideas of superhero comic books, all those tropes and so forth. I knew I'd have a lot of stuff to write on for a long time.
Right, so how do you make sure that your comic feels relevant with today's audience? Are you continually reading new comic books just to sort of get ideas, or like where do you get your inspiration from?
I really should. Marvel and DC lost me about 2 reboots ago. I've had a hard time with it. So what it's really become is more some deeper themes, some more universal themes like love, relationships, families. And also kind of playing more off of the movies, I guess, more than anything else. And there's also some universal comic book themes throughout. You know, the hero that can't bring himself to do anything wrong. You know, the villain that can't bring herself to do anything right. All of those kind of ideas we've seen over and over again have gotten almost to be threaded into our culture. So it's really easy to pull back into those things and reach to that for a little inspiration.
Right, awesome. So like one of the major themes in your cartoon is that, you know, villainous things like evil acts are just as easy to do legally as it is illegally, and this theme feels particularly relevant in the last 5 to 10 years. So how do you feel your approach to that theme has changed since you began this webcomic?
Well, at first I was playing very much off of the comic book world. Then it was clear that in corporate terms, you know, I could do office comedy and stuff like that. I try not to get too political, just because we've gotten so divisive as a country that it's really, there's not a whole lot of upside to talk politics. But I found that just in terms of those interpersonal relationships, really it's a lot of what I write has to do with relationships. It's just that the people happen to be wearing spandex. There's sometimes the hero thing is almost a secondary aspect to what's going on.
But isn't that the key to any good story? Is that you're writing people, not tropes?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's and these people have kind of become a little bit, hopefully, three-dimensional, and they're people that I'd want to know. You know.
Exactly. So I know that your webcomics are 100% your own creation. You don't have any editors or publishers. Why do you choose to do everything yourself? Is it easier? Do you find it more difficult, or is there a reason behind that?
Well, at first it was necessity. In other words, in 2000, nobody wanted me. So I started doing it myself, and what I found, and a lot of that goes into what I put into the webcomics handbook, is I found that I could do a lot better with a smaller audience if I cut out all the middlemen. So for me, it was more of a survival thing.
So what do you think webcomics as a medium can do better, or can do better than other mediums such as regular comics can't do, or do better?
Oh, that's a long list. And that's not to say one is good and one is bad. One thing that webcomics is great at, number one, is if you're a young person just starting out, webcomics is a great way to learn, because you're getting lots of feedback, because people are seeing your stuff, and they're going to be very free with the feedback, whether it's positive or negative.
Right.
If you're learning, no better way to learn. And you get constant reinforcement for the things you do well. Number two, entry from voices we haven't heard traditionally. That includes minorities, women, transgender community, go down the list. People that we haven't traditionally heard from. You hear from them first in webcomics.
Yeah.
You hear from them first in these fantastic independent comics that you wouldn't see anyplace else. Webcomic is great for that stuff. And number three, topics that you wouldn't normally see in independent comics.
Yeah, I mean, like regular comics, it's such a risky business because there's so much money and time and investment that goes into it. So yeah, I definitely think that webcomics are like the frontier for new ideas, new voices, new topics that haven't been talked about, everything you mentioned.
Absolutely.
So I think that's all the time that we have today, but thank you so much for interviewing with us and for taking the time to talk to us. Is there anything else you would like to tell our viewers at Comics First before we wrap up?
No, I will tell you, check out the comic at evil-inc.com. And thank you so much for taking this time with me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Once again, everybody, I'm Christine Dawn with Comics First. If you enjoyed this interview, please check us out at www.comicsfirst.com. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, any social media platform. And if you like this interview, be sure to comment and subscribe and like below. Thank you so much, and